Kia ora everyone. It's really nice to be here. How exciting. I didn't think about this 10 years ago that we'd be sitting here in a different space with a whole lot of familiar and new faces, celebrating. Sometimes 10 years feels like it's gone really fast, and other times, wow, it was a lifetime ago. So I'm Sheryl Hann. I'm currently lead advisor working in community investment at Ministry of Social Development. I've worked in the family and domestic violence area for around 20 years though, and started working at a local women's refuge in Palmerston North and worked at Women's Refuge National Office doing policy and research. Oh my gosh, I have seen some really neat faces from the past. Hi Ruth. When I was part of the National Office team at Refuge, that's when I first kind of came connected with the idea of the Family Violence Clearinghouse. And then when it started, I was the Outreach Coordinator for a few years, but I've stayed connected in the whole 10 years. So I'm going to just spend a little bit of time going back to the beginning and tell you where the Clearinghouse came from. And as I've been dredging my brain, give you a few of the things that I can remember, and show you some of the faces, because not everyone was able to be here today from the old days, from the beginning, so I'll show you a few of the people who've been around. So, first I can start with where the Clearinghouse came from. So, it probably was an idea that was around way before this, but when I was in the Refuge National Office, I was part of a really neat partnership that was between government and community around developing the National Family Violence Strategy. So that's the Te Rito New Zealand Family Violence Prevention Strategy 2002, which is actually the last time we had a National Family Violence Strategy. So I'm still carrying it around with me. So it was really, over a couple of years, there was lots of community consultation, hui all around the country, lots of conversations between NGOs and government to develop this strategy. And I was part of those conversations, but then as it was being written up, I was also at MSD every day as one of the NGO partners working on writing this strategy. And that's when the idea, among all the great ideas in here, was emerging around the need to have a mechanism for coordinating research information. And this became Action Area 8, and this is a quote from that. Currently the issue is that there's no mechanism for coordinating and collating existing research and disseminating information. Having access to quality information is critical to ensuring family violence prevention strategies and initiatives have the greatest impact possible, and can also assist cross-sectorial consistency and approaches to family violence prevention. So you can see where the idea, people were saying we wanted access to information, we wanted to have the latest research, and people who were sitting in universities and in government could see that there was research that wasn't making its way into policy and practice, and so that idea had emerged from a lot of conversations. And they started looking around internationally about what were the ideas to coordinate a mechanism that could collate and promote and distribute family violence information. But I really like going back to this original stuff, how the idea about partnerships and building cross-sector collaboration and discussion is there right from the beginning. So when I was part of the group writing this, I thought, oh, this is really exciting, because I was still working at, trying to work on my PhD, which never finished at Massey at the time, and I was really into the research idea, so I started trying to convince the people where I was working that it would be a really good idea for Women's Refuge to be involved in the Clearinghouse. So talked locally within the refuge and started talking to the other key NGO partners that we were working with at the time, which was the National Network of Stopping Violence Services and Child Abuse Prevention Services, which is now was changed to Jigsaw later. So we started talking about how NGOs could be part of this, that it didn't necessarily just have to be universities or government running this clearinghouse. And it turned into a proposal that was between the three NGOs and Canterbury University, Te Awatea Violence Research Centre at the time. So I went looking for the original proposal because I helped write it, and I found it, but guess what? That's one of the things that makes you think 10 years is a long time. because now I can't even read it, but I did find I've got a friend who's got an old computer, so I'm going to go and get it off there eventually, but I couldn't get it for this. But I thought that was very telling. I have to say, as we were developing the ideas, and as we were putting together how our partnership might look, we were so totally influenced by Raewyn Good. So I just have to talk about her for a minute here. Raewyn was the principal analyst at Ministry of Social Development at the time, and I think that was her role at the time, but I've purposefully misspelt principal because of the way that Raewyn was in terms of living her values and her ethics every moment. So she was, director, or she was heavily involved in SPEAR, which was the Social Policy Research Group, trying to connect research that was happening across government to collate it and to make sure it was that everyone knew about it and that there was actually kind of a research agenda where that was cross-government, and to support the dissemination of research between government and into community. She was also one of the first kind of policy people working on a secretariat within government around family violence. So there was the Family Violence Focus Group, a national kind of governance group, and Raewyn Good, along with Parikotuku Moore, were policy people working within government around family violence, maybe the first ones we had in New Zealand, I think. And she was also instrumental in starting Wellington Women's Refuge. So she was she was my mentor and a fantastic, inspiring person at MSD, but a lot of the vision around the clearinghouse was hers, about what it could look like and what it could be, because she held passionately to the idea that it was going to be a partnership, and that's the reason I've got that three-legged stool there, because she talked about that all the time. I didn't even realise that was a model. I only just went searching for it yesterday and realised that there's all these other people use that as well. I thought that was her great idea. But she keeps saying we can't have just one group owning this. The whole thing about having research and information disseminated and used everywhere is that it has to be a partnership approach right from the beginning. So she talked about government and academia and NGOs all working together to create and co-create and disseminate and keep on working at all levels. And so that's why she was really passionate about the original proposal being a partnership between community groups and between university and working in government. And it was a really tricky partnership right from the beginning, and it was hard to kind of keep those relationships going, but she made sure it kept us true to that and kept trying to keep us working through those difficulties around the relationships. The other thing about Raewyn is, who sadly passed away in 2008, that she had such a strong feeling about democracy, and I think that was kind of at the heart of what the clearinghouse was about too, that everyone had the right to access information and that we should be sharing our resources and sharing our ideas around as much as possible. But she also wanted to make everything really relevant for everyday people, so that it was real and practical and usable and not inaccessible or kind of locked away. And she was really good at using connections and relationships to break down bureaucracy, and we needed to do a lot of that at the beginning of the clearinghouse, and so she was very valuable for that. So after a year of huge discussions and debates and looking around about what the model could be like and connecting with other clearinghouses around the world, like even the term clearinghouse was a huge debate. You wouldn't know how many hours were spent on that name, and especially within the NGO sector, it was like, why are we using that name? Because it has a more kind of economic sound or function for a lot of people, and was around people coming to terms with something that we could agree on there. But that was used internationally as well. So it was about providing quality. This is our first purpose and mission statement: to provide access to quality information for a wide range of users, including those working to prevent and eliminate family violence. So it was really clear right from the beginning this was about informing policy and practice for the sector. And the people that were working on that, some of the first people, it was MSD funded. It was hosted at Te Awatea Violence Research Centre at the University of Canterbury, and it was operated by that consortium of the Research Centre, Refuge, Child Abuse Prevention and National Network. And we had this team here of Dr. Kate Van Herkter, Nick Fahey, Rachel Halvax and Kylie working in Christchurch, and myself based at Women's Refuge office, where were we at the time? In Courtney Place in Wellington, and Peggy McConnell was the librarian based at MSD Library. We all worked together. So this was in 2005, we had a virtual team, and that was quite new then as well. So we were trying to work out, how do you have team meetings, like on the phone and, emails and stuff like that. That was quite an interesting exercise as well. So there was a whole year spent on actually really grappling with things like definitions and how we were going to review all these hundreds and hundreds of pieces of literature that we wanted to enter into the library that wasn't there in the first place. So that was the team that did that over the first few years. And I just had to put this up because we did win an award, second I think, for innovation in libraries in 2006. That's the MSD team. So the team that I showed you before, I'm going to show you some more pictures too, but we put together, it was a big work to put together the foundations of the clearinghouse, and we had lots of discussions about what information was going to be in and out and how we were going to define and how we were going to review. And just one of the things I was thinking about was the discussion we had around good practice, and it was really important that we had a reference group who were made up of academics and people from the community sector, because that was a really good checking point for us all the time. So I really want to honour and acknowledge all the people that have been part of the advisory and reference groups all the way through, because having that kind of those really deep discussions about knowledge and practice in the sector, and making sure that everything we did was keeping safety and accountability at the forefront was really important for setting up the foundations for the clearinghouse. And we had weeks of debate about whether it was going to be good practice or best practice even. That's how far we got. So this, after 2008, there was a change when Canterbury University moved away from the clearinghouse because of changes at the Violence Research Centre, and it moved into the Ministry of Social Development, where we still tried to keep that partnership approach with a governance group from across MSD and the NGOs, the library being hosted at MSD and the IT working from there, and myself, and then Jessica Trask working from the Refuge National Office, and still keeping that cross-sector advisory group. And there's been such goodwill, especially from academics from across a whole lot of different institutions, to be part of this right from the beginning as well. So here's some of the faces, and starting like clockwise with Phillip up in the top right. Phillip Worthington, who was the librarian at MSD for a long time. That's Raywin, Jeff, Sharon and myself, and we are actually all in one picture there, and they made me stand in the front. I do remember actually getting that photo taken. Then there's Marie Connolly, who took over from Kate as the director of the Te Awatea Violence Research Centre, and Peggy McConnell, who was the librarian when I was there, and Jessica Trask, who took my job when I left to go and work at MSD. Nick Fahey, who was the original manager, Desiree, who's from MSD, and Jude was at the Canterbury team, and Yvonne Crichton-Hill took over after Marie left, I think. And then there's a few people who are not pictured, and I'm sorry if I've left anybody else out as well. I was trying to rack my brains, and Gay had found a list as well, which was really useful, of Verena Hassett, Kirsten Officer, Jolene Amadoris, and Sarah McGray. So there's been quite a few people, and there's also been some students and interns as well who've worked along during that time. I think that's the end of my slides, because Janet's going to take over now. But I just want to say that I've been really proud to be part of that right from the beginning, and I do feel like the clearinghouse is my baby, so I've stayed connected, because it's been a big part of the work and a big part of the passion about connecting up NGOs and universities and government, and making what happens in terms of people's ideas be really usable and practical for the everyday work that's happening out there to try and prevent family violence. And I think it is an incredibly valuable resource. So thank you, everyone. Actually, I do remember one other thing I want to say now. Can I do that, Janet? Sorry. I just wanted to tell you about the image. The image that's still on the clearinghouse is actually from the original Te Rito strategy, and it was from a piece of art by Kirsten Maynard's sister, who's Justine Maynard, and it actually is a socio-ecological model. Did you know that? So it represents the baby in the womb and whānau, hapu, iwi and community around them. And actually the original piece, you can see there's all these ones that are connected. So it actually is about the interconnections between people and the environment, and that's the representative image that's still used everywhere through the family violence networks as well. So thank you.
Thank you.